Heyo, you're tuning into Toasted Time, where I cook your time with some Reddit stories. Right now, we've got Prorevenge, where a landlord breaks into their tenant's house. Our first story is by Shelator. My landlord was a terrible human being, and honestly, calling him a human is even pushing it. Just a few of the things he has done to me over the past 3 years. He stole my dryer and other household products that are in a common area, made me pay for a plumbing repair which was deemed normal wear and tear. He tried breaking into my house and retaliated against me because I went to my lawyer after he sent me a letter about a parking spot, and he tried charging me an extra $150 a month. Mind you, I was never late for rent in 3 years, except for when he made me pay for the plumbing repair, so the next month I was a couple days late. And the list goes on. Now, the apartment was nowhere near nice. I found out the plumbing was actually illegal, and he left me with a porch 4 years that has severe safety issues. The ceiling paint was already falling down, gas heater was not up to code, and so on. I finally got my chance to leave after he wanted to raise my rent to $500 a month. He will do anything and everything to get more money out of his tenants. So I called the building inspector 4 days before I left, and I told him everything. The porch, when he finally replaced it, didn't have a permit and was definitely not up to code. And I told him about the plumbing and the heater and went on and on. The inspector came over the very next day and I saw him taking measurements. Each violation is a $500 a day fine until fixed, and I honestly don't know what happened, but my god did it feel good to finally get him back. He is at the very least on the town's radar. A week before I moved out, he tried telling me that I needed to be out by a specific time, and I never responded, and where I live, that is not how it works. He tried to threaten me with the police if I wasn't gone. Well, I went to the police myself that morning to warn them. The landlord did come by, threatened me and harassed me, and I called the police and they informed him I was in the right. Long story short, he had broken into my apartment while I was gone. He nailed my door shut, and I told the police to get the supervisor because I was over being harassed by this guy, and go figure, he left before the supervisor could get there. I am positive he knew he'd be arrested on site. But I got the police report and they are charging him with a felony for breaking and entering. Fines plus a charge? Don't be a jerk to good people. You know, if I'm being completely honest, I think this guy isn't necessarily a jerk, but is actually insane. Like, what was the purpose of nailing the door shut? What did he think would happen at that rate? Clearly OP was able to call the police. Is it a she? He? I don't know. They did it the first time already, so what did the landlord expect? That they wouldn't call the police the second time after nailing the door shut? What was the end goal here? Like, she still had her stuff in the apartment, I assume. So, what did he think was what did he think was gonna happen? Like, OP would just return to the house and be like, ah, shucks. The building is nailed down, I can't enter. Like, what? That literally does not make any amount of sense. I don't think he's necessarily just a jerk. I think he's actually insane. Tell me what your thoughts are down below. But anyways, continuing on. And the final story comes from PJ Murphy. I was discussing this sub with a good friend and he said, boy have I got a story that'll fit. And it wasn't his story but his brother's, and I sat with him and got the details, so buckle up, it is a good one, and a long one at that. So for starters, let's call him Bob. Bob has been fiddling with computers since he was a kid and knows them pretty well, and as with most IT people, he has moved from job to job. The employer he worked for was a service distribution company and there were 2 IT employees, and the company was located in Ontario, Canada. And about 3 years ago, Bob's employer decided to modernize their software. They had separate programs for dispatching, for inventory, for payroll and finances, and it was complicated moving information from one program to the another. So they decided to get an ERP program, and Bob recommended one that he knew inside out from a previous employer. And for those of you who do not know, an ERP program handles everything. Purchase orders, sales, inventory, personnel, vendors, customers, all of it. You can run a report and find out which customers bought the most part ABC in the last year, which salesman has improved his numbers the most, which vendor has the fastest delivery time, and which shipper has packed the most orders. Everyone in the program used the ERP program, but it was very complicated and they used the aspects of it related to their position. For example, the receiver would accept a shipment, verify the quantity, confirmed it was received, and the inventory stats would be available to the salespeople if they wanted to look up how many were on hand. The receiver didn't care what the price was or who the vendor was, he just did his job. And Bob was run ragged during the implementation process, but he managed to train most of the employees on their aspects, and after a few months everything was running fairly smoothly. And Bob still got tickets for tweaks in the operation of the software and occasional hardware IT issues. And then the company decided to expand their footprint and was marketing in 2 different time zones. And that messed things up. Atlanta, Canada is 90 minutes early, so if someone sent an email or an order at 8 a.m. their time, it would arrive at 6:30 a.m. Ontario time. And Pacific Canada is 3 hours late, so an email sent at 3 p.m. Vancouver time would arrive at 6 p.m. This stretched out the day, so many of the staff came in early and worked late. And Bob would arrive at 8 a.m. and there would be people that demanded his immediate assistance and were annoyed that he didn't respond instantly, even though their request was submitted before his start time. Same with late in the day, his phone would ring at dinner time with people that wanted his help right now. And they decided to stagger his and his IT colleague's shift time. Bob would start at 6 a.m. and work till 2:30, and his colleague would start at 10:30 a.m. and work until 7 p.m. Bob's colleague had kids and refused the shift change, and the employer insisted. The colleague quit. And that meant that Bob was the only person in the IT department, and the employer said that they would look to hire a new IT guy, but they had trouble finding one that knew the ERP system. And they were offering well under a market value salary. Bob asked for a raise and was denied. Then he wanted overtime, and the employer told him that as an IT specialist he was exempt from overtime laws in Ontario. Bob looked it up and the employer was correct. This went on for some time and he knew lots of IT people socially, so they told him what the company was offering, and Bob knew that they wouldn't find another tech. And things went downhill from there. Bob would get chewed out if he missed a call or an email, no matter what time it came in, and he had to train new hires on the ERP system as well to take care of the hardware, and he asked repeatedly for better compensation and was denied. So he planned to get a new job. Now here is the revenge. Bob had access to the entirety of the ERP program, and when a user signed in, the time was logged, and even if they didn't sign out, after 15 minutes it would log them out anyway. Everyone in the company was on salary, and many of them came in early and stayed late. Ontario labor laws state that even salaried workers are entitled to overtime after 44 hours a week, unless they were a manager or supervisor. So Bob jumped into the program and ran a report for each employee that wasn't a manager, all the way back to when the ERP program was started. And then he reached out to an employment lawyer and got the okay to refer employees to him. Bob had lined up another job, and after he left, every employee in the company got an email with an Excel spreadsheet showing the hours they had put in past 44 hours a week. And the subject line said, "You are legally entitled to overtime pay." In the body of the email was the lawyer's name. The crap hit the fan. Almost every employee authorized the lawyer to negotiate with the company on their behalf, and the company had to pay a ton of money. All the company had to do was pay Bob for the extra work he put in, and instead they had to pay almost everyone. Am I the only one confused as to why almost every employee authorized a lawyer? Because why wouldn't, am I maybe you can tell me in the comments, am I wrong that isn't it essentially just free money to contact a lawyer at that rate? Because if he's going to sue them for a bunch of money because they're not paying, then wouldn't you want that money that you are legally entitled to, which is essentially free money at that rate because you weren't getting it paid at one point, but now you can? Why wouldn't you pursue that? Am I wrong on that? Or maybe I just have flawed thinking, I guess, in this. Maybe you guys can let me know in the comments. But I have to say, why would you decide to screw over the one dude who knows the skeletons in the closet? What? Why would you want to do that? The one dude who is making everything run, you want to screw over that dude. What makes you so prideful that you think that that isn't going to come back and bite you in the A? Like, what? That is a confusing and stupid mentality, if you ask me. Anywho, let me know what your thoughts are down below. Well, that is about it for those stories today. But if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe to become a fellow bread bag. But aside from that, I post 2 new videos every day, so I hope to see you next time toasting session. But until then, have a good one.